Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop, and this is my performance review of the Li-Ning Liren 4 V2. The Liren line is kind of like Nike's Hyperdunk line, right? So the Liren line is to Li-Ning to what the Hyperdunks were to Nike, right? And this shoe is pretty freaking expensive. It goes around like 160 to like 200 bucks, which is freaking expensive depending on the kind of like website. But I did get it from Kick's Own, so if you guys do want to cop it, try to leave a link in the description box. And of course, this is the V2 or the second version of the Liren 4, which was absolutely amazing. I love playing in that shoe, and it was one of my favorite shoes of last year, right? So let's get it started right off with the Tracciones. In this colorway, we have a fully translucent outsole and it's green. So that's a pretty interesting translucent color, right? And also they are using a herringbone traction pattern throughout the entire outsole pretty much. And it does kind of like switch orientations. It does rotate 90 degrees, but how is the traction? So if you're playing on a clean court, it actually has a pretty good stop, right? At first, it wasn't amazing. I definitely needed to break it in, but once I broke it in, it did get pretty dang good. So yeah, I had an amazing time when I was playing on a clean court. Again, it's not top tier, but it's pretty dang solid, right? But it does pick up a little bit of, or actually a good amount of dust, and it is affected by dust a little bit. So just be careful on that. I wouldn't say it's terrible, but also I wouldn't say it's amazing on dust performance, right? And also it's not the easiest to wipe off. You kind of do need to get in there and really wipe off the dust. So if you're playing on a really dirty court, this probably isn't the best option. But like I said, the Liren 4 that I was playing in has a solid rubber, right? And of course, this is a translucent outsole, so if you can, probably try to get the solid rubber, but for me, it wasn't the best for dust performance. And also, this shoe has absolutely zero squeak, which kind of sucks. Once you really break it in, it starts to squeak a little bit, just a tiny bit, but it's pretty much silent. Of course, that's nothing to do with performance, but I like to have a nice little squeak, and the Liren 4 V2, not that much, you know what I mean? And also, if you're playing on an outdoor court, I feel like you should be fine. Like, the rubber is pretty dang hard. There's a lot of grooves, right? So there's a lot of surface area, and the grooves are kind of deep too. So you should be fine on an outdoor court with the Liren 4 V2. So the traction, not the best, but it wasn't terrible, right? And now moving on to the heel to toe transition, very nice and springy, right? So here in the heel, we got a nice curve shape, and also the cage is actually kind of soft. It reminds me of the Wild 10 cage, so it allows for a little bit of compression, right? So it feels nice here in the heel. And coming here to the forefoot, we have a very nice rocker shape. So putting a little bit of weight here into the tip of the toe, it kind of rocks forward, which feels great. So from the overall shape, it feels really smooth. And then you guys can see through the translucent rubber, we have a pretty much a full length plate. It's like this fork shape here in the forefoot. I would say it's like 3/4 length, you know, but because of this plate, you have a pretty nice springiness in the actual sole of the shoe. So coming from the heel, right, doing heel dominant strides down the court, and coming here into the forefoot, that feels really smooth. And then once you kind of bend it, it kind of springs you forward, which does feel really nice. Just like in the Liren 4. So I would say it's not as springy though for some reason, probably because of the cushioning setup, which we'll get into right after this, but it does feel pretty dang nice. Of course, it's not as springy as like a full length carbon fiber plate found in like the Wild 10s, but it's still pretty dang nice here in with this plastic, you know? So there's that. Moving on to the cushioning setup. The cushioning setup is freaking amazing, guys. I would say this is one of the best all-around cushioning setups that you can get right now, right? So first of all, they are using full-length boom, right? And it is exposed here on the medial side. The insole is all right. It's just kind of like this, feels like an elastic material almost a little bit, like a rubbery type of insole. It's not like foamy, you know? But underneath that, we have a full-on soft mesh strobo board, and there's no midfoot chain plate. You know what I mean? There's no midfoot chain plate that's top loaded. The plate is actually bottom loaded from the cushion. You know what I mean? So there's no plate. Like for example, in the Kai 1, you can see the plate in the midfoot, which does feel kind of stiff in the midfoot. But Here in the Liren 4 V2, it's actually just full length soft mesh stromal board. So from like your heel, midfoot, and forefoot, you feel that really soft boom right underneath the foot. So step in comfort is absolutely amazing. And once you get going in the shoe, it also does have a nice little bounce to it as well. It feels very similar to the Wild 10, right? Which of course is a good thing. The Wild 10 was one of the best hoop shoes of last year as well. But it doesn't feel as bouncy as the Liren 4s. The Liren 4s, I don't know what they did with the stromal board, but it's like a foam stromal board, and it makes it feel really bouncy for the cushioning setup, right? But here in the V2, it's just a soft mesh stromal board, so it still does feel bouncy, but not as bouncy as the Liren 4s, right? So yeah, nice step in comfort, nice little subtle bounce right underneath the foot. Has a little bit of compression. Like I said, the plastic cage is not that stiff, so it still allows for a little bit of compression. Has good court feel, has great impact protection. So it's just an overall really nice cushioning setup, and I feel like most people will enjoy it, you know what I mean? So there is a cushioning setup there. Moving on to the upper. So the upper, they're using like it reminds me a little bit of like Lenoe. There's a lot of ventilation holes, and you can see the kind of like the individual strands of material and fibers that they put here into the material. But yeah, it's just extremely thin. There's good ventilation. It's supportive overall. There is a nice bit of fuse around the toe box for extra durability and support. So it feels really nice here in the toe box, right? And then coming here to the midfoot, it's also extremely thin. Look at that, right? It does feel a little bit more glued down and supportive compared to the toe box, so which of course is a good thing. And then for the tongue, we have a little bit of padding. It's just like one foam pad here on top of the tongue, which is not that nice. But then underneath that, we have like a neoprene type of material with ventilation holes. It's also a half booty construction tongue, giving you a better overall one-to-one fit. And then for the ankle area, we have like an average amount of padding, not super well padded, especially on the sides of the ankle, but in the back where your Achilles is, it does have a little bit of padding, right? And it also does have a very nice high heel tab, which makes the shoe extremely easy to put on. So yeah, if you're looking for an extremely minimal and very thin material that also provides pretty dang good support, this is an amazing upper, right? Also for the quality, it doesn't even feel that cheap. I feel like they did a pretty dang good job. So there is the upper there. Moving on to the fit. So I went true to size, and oh my gosh, this fit is so dang snug. I definitely do wish I went up half a size, you know what I mean? So if you want an extremely snug fit, then go true to size. I mean, it's extremely snug here in the toe box. My toes go right to the edge of the shoe. It's also pretty, like slightly narrow. It's not super narrow, but it's slightly narrow. So it's just a really snug fit for me. And usually I like a really snug fit for me in my hoop shoes, right? But I would say this is a little bit too snug, and I wish I went up half a size. So for most people, go up half a size, right? So there is the fit there. Moving on to the support and lockdown, I didn't really have any huge issues, right? Because this material is so thin, it doesn't feel like the most supportive upper, you know, especially compared to like, I don't know, the AE1, the Harden Volume 8, the Dawn Issue 5, you know, with like the synthetic material. But I would say it's gonna be adequate for most people, you know what I mean? It's just, like I said, comparing it to the most supportive uppers out there, it's not as supportive, but adequate for me, right? And lateral containment, right? We have this, the plastic coming up acting as a sidewall here in the forefoot. We got two kind of teeth here, you know? So that's good for the forefoot, and then here in the heel, you can see it's kind of like the cage, right? It cages the foam here on the lateral side and comes up to make the actual like heel counter, which is really cool actually for design. But with that external heel counter, you're good to go. Lateral containment was really good for me. I didn't have any issues with my foot coming out of the footbed. It's also a very wide shoe. Look at that. See how wide that shoe is, guys? Right, so you're low to the ground here in the forefoot, and you have a very wide base. So lateral stability was really good for me as well. And I didn't really have any issues with heel slippage, and my foot felt locked into the shoe once I tightened the laces. So overall support and lockdown was really good for me. And now moving on to the weight of the shoe. Right when I first got it, I was like, yo, this shoe feels extremely light. And when I played in it, I was like, yo, this shoe feels extremely light and very minimal. And if I remember correctly, this was one of the lightest shoes you can get. Yeah, 10.9 ounces, guys. Let's check the other shoe. 10.55 ounces, guys. So let's average it to like 10.7. So the Wade Flash was like 10.8 ounces, if I remember correctly. And that was the lightest shoe that you could get as far as like the overall weight goes. So yeah, the Liren 4 V2 is the new winner. It's a new #1 for lightest basketball shoe that you can get as far as like the weight goes, the number weight, you know? And yeah, this shoe feels extremely light, very minimal, and also extremely responsive. When I was playing on a clean court, the traction was really good. I love the cushioning setup because it's responsive. You know, you have good court feel as well, but yeah, it's still comfortable with the soft stepping comfort and also bounce, like subtle bounce that you get. So yeah, it's just a really, really nice guard shoe in that regard. And now moving on to the ventilation, amazing. You have amazing airflow through this upper. So you're gonna be good to go. Your feet are gonna feel cool in this shoe. And now moving on to the aesthetics, I love it. There's some amazing colorways of this shoe as well. The Liren 4 and the Liren 4 V2 have some amazing colorways. So tell us what you guys think of the aesthetics down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, yeah, so this shoe plays very similarly to the Wild 10. And the Wild 10, also for me, I had a couple of issues with the dust performance. It wasn't the best on dust. You know, if I was playing on a clean court, amazing. Same thing with the Liren 4 V2. But also one thing I would say I like the Wild 10 better for is the carbon fiber plate, which makes it feel a little bit more springy and kind of like give it a little bit more pop. But like I said, the Liren 4 V2 is still kind of springy as well, you know? The cushioning setup is very similar, very, very lightweight shoes for both of them. So yeah, we pretty much found another Wild 10, which of course is really, really good. Like I said, that was a top tier performer, and this shoe also is a top tier performer. I definitely do wish it was a little bit better for the traction, right? So anyways, that about concludes my performance review of the Li-Ning Liren 4 V2. Again, if you guys do want to copy, try to leave a link in the description box. I would say this is an amazing shoe for guards. Not the best shoe for bigger dudes, however, you know, but for a guard, if you're looking for a very lightweight and minimal shoe, this is amazing. That about wraps it up. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.